Yo, what's going on, Geminites? It's your boy Gem Mint. I wanted to do a video that explained how I got into comic books, so that's what we're gonna do. Stay tuned. Alright guys, so how did I get into comic books? Well, first of all, before comic books, the first thing I ever remember getting into was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I remember the cartoon and the music and the intro specifically. Then I was into He-Man, Transformers, and all the toys that went with those things. I remember seeing the old original Spider-Man cartoon back in the day, and I didn't really fall in love with it. I remember as a kid thinking, what the hell is this guy swinging on? These webs are just in the sky. He's above the skyscrapers. So that really didn't catch me. So I knew about comic book people, heroes, superheroes, or whatever. And when I was in elementary school in 5th grade, I remember my friend showing me the 1992 Marvel masterpiece by Joe Jusko, the trading cards, and it blew me away. I remember the cards like Spider-Man, Incredible Hulk, Silver Surfer, Human Torch, all the ones that had like the black background, and it just looked so realistic to me. Joe Jusko made these characters look real, and I just fell in love with them ever since. And then I'll never forget, after buying packs with my friends and trying to put the set together, that I saw the first chase card from that set, the Wolverine vs. Sabretooth. It blew my mind. First of all, the artwork is incredible. It was a little bit of a shinier card, and all the other cards I've ever seen up to that point only had one character on the card. These 5 bonus cards were versus cards, and they were fighting each other. Man, when I saw that card, that was it. I was in love with it. I wanted to get all the trading cards. I started going back and getting the Marvel Universe sets, and I started going to local comic shops. So when I started going into local comic shops, what was hot at the time was Spawn, Spider-Man, and X-Men. Spawn, the covers always spoke to me the most, and I used to pick those up in singles. I want to say I was picking them up around issue 50 and so. I remember buying the issue 50 was like the anniversary issue that was kind of like an updated version of Spawn #1. I remember buying $5 issues and seeing Spawn #1 for like 20 bucks and thinking, nah, that's too expensive. My mom's never going to buy it for me, or whatever. And for whatever reason, I also picked up some trade paperbacks. I picked up Maximum Carnage and The Death of Superman. I must have read those things 100 times, and I love those stories. I love the artwork. That's my nostalgic read that always kind of resonates with me. I still love those stories to this day. It's also a big reason why I love comics. I've always been a collector at heart. I've always been the type of person that had to have the whole entire set of something. I couldn't just be content with one. So I ended up getting a bunch of trading card sets. I used to try to collect the entire run of Spawn. Spider-Man was very hard for me to collect because the stories wouldn't just be Amazing Spider-Man 400 through 401, through 410 or whatever. The stories would bounce from the different titles: Spectacular Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man, Sensational Spider-Man, and this is around the Clone Saga time. So it was super confusing for me as a kid to follow those. Like, I didn't know all the titles that Spider-Man had and all that kind of stuff. And forget it, X-Men were on issue 300 something. It was super confusing. So after that, as I started going into middle school, and started going into high school, I kind of stopped messing with comics. Like, I was always into video games. I would watch the movies, like the Spawn movie was my shit, and any kind of comic related thing I was into. But I kind of stopped collecting comics around that time. I remember like the last box of cards that I bought was the Spider-Man Eternal Evil set, which I think came out in 1995. It's still a set that I love. I love how they portray the characters, and I still need to pick up that set, actually. But then I got out of it. I didn't get back into comics until probably 2012. At this point, I'm an adult. I have a child. I'm married. I have a regular 9-to-5 job. And I remember wanting to get Mortal Kombat Trilogy for PlayStation. I think I had a PS3 that was backwards compatible, and I was like, damn, I used to love Mortal Kombat. I used to love Trilogy. Let me buy it off eBay. Boom, set up an eBay account, bought the game or whatever. And then for whatever reason, I started thinking about the trading cards again. The trading cards I used to collect as a kid. Went back on eBay, picked up the 1992 Marvel masterpieces, and then that snowball effect happened again. Boom, boom, boom. All those trading card sets I started collecting again. I remember looking at the back of those cards as a kid, and it'll show you their first appearance. I actually didn't realize it until the second go around that sometimes it would be their first appearance and sometimes it would be their first cover appearance. But anyway, I'm like, damn, I'm an adult now. I could buy Amazing Spider-Man 300, Amazing Spider-Man 316. X-Men 1, still looks kind of expensive, but you get the idea. So I started going on eBay buying raw copies of these first appearances of my favorite characters from the trading cards. Once I started doing that, I started getting older issues in. Before I knew it, I had a bunch of amazing Spider-Man titles, and I figured, shit, maybe I'll start putting together a run. Let me go to my local comic shop so that this way I'm not spending all this money on eBay. At this time, fees are already asking me what all these packages are. We weren't really as financially well off as we were now in 2012 or whatever. So I started going to my local comic shop, Past, Present, Future in West Palm Beach, Florida. The main hub over there on like Congress and Okeechobee. So anyway, I would dig through the long boxes, I would pick up issues, and then I started looking at the new comics coming out, and I started jumping onto a series that I was familiar with. Spider-Man had just started Spider Island, so I started picking that up with all the tie-ins. Rick Remender just started the Venom run, and then Spider Island led into the new Scarlet Spider title. So I started putting all those runs together. At this same time, I was putting together Amazing Spider-Man runs, and I was putting together Spawn runs. I actually ended up putting the entire Spawn run, issues 1 through 242 together, with every little mini-series, and I read every single issue, and I absolutely loved it. I did what I always kind of did as a collector. Me as a collector, I'm the type of person that builds up a collection, gets it complete, and then I sell it. And I take that money and I turn that into another collection. So that's what I did. I took my entire Spawn run, put it on eBay. It auctioned for like $1,100. This had to be 2014 or something like that, 2015. Whatever time issue 242 came out. With the $1,100, I ended up buying a Hulk 181 6.5 for $650. First of all, a Hulk 181 6.5 right now is probably like $1,500 if you're lucky. It might even be $2,000 by now. So that was like my first big slab that I bought. Then I started sending all those key issues that I bought off eBay, those raw books, I started sending them to CGC. Around this time, I wanted to get like those New Mutants books, like first appearance of Cable, first appearance of Deadpool. I bought what looked like a really good copy off eBay for $150. Got it in, sent it to CGC, didn't get it pressed or anything. Boom, hit a 9.8. That book then was worth $450 in a 9.8. So I was like, shit, I sold it. That was a $300 come up. And it must have been the next day the Ryan Reynolds Deadpool teaser trailer concept dropped, and the book immediately doubled up. And I was like, damn. I was kind of upset, but I still made profit on it. And it kind of gave me the bug to find raw books in the wild, to get them CGC, to sell them. Then I would start hunting every weekend. I would go to Past, Present, Future. Then I would drive down south to Tate's Comics, into Phil's Comics, and they had like these other comic shops. I would hit like 5 to 6 shops every weekend in a big like circle, digging through them long boxes. I remember I would find X-Force number 2s, which were super hot at the time. I would get them for $2, flip them for $20. And that's when I kind of got into buying and selling of comics, and started using the profits from that to buy bigger books and to just fund the hobby. So after doing that for a while, I started collecting the big keys. You know, I had my Hulk 181. I ended up selling it and getting a 7.5. I ended up getting an X-Men 1, selling it, getting a 3.5, getting a Fantastic Four number 1, an Avengers 1. And I started getting those big keys, but it was like, man, it felt like chasing the dragon. Like, it was never enough. Like, you would get that big book, and then bam, you got to hustle up and get another $2-3 to get the next key. And at this point, I had a bunch of Copper Age keys 9.8s. I had ASM 300, 252, Secret Wars 8, 298, 299. I'll have pictures going because I had every like big copper key at 9.8. And then what do I do when I build up a collection and I feel like it's complete? Boom, I sell it. Sold all those things, and I started buying omnibus and statues. And then that became my new obsession. Now, I find myself collecting omnibus and never feeling the urge to sell them. And I think the difference between omnibus and collecting statues and slabs is that you can always read the omnibus. They have a wealth of art and stories and references and things that you could always go back to. Fee even tells me all the time, like, damn, this omnibus thing and this whole comic thing is like what you stuck with the longest, because I've gone through collecting action figures, video game stuff, and retro game stuff, and I've been sticking with this one the longest, and I think the readability is what keeps me in it. I still love collecting statues, although I never feel married to them. Like most of you guys know who watch my channel, I built up an entire collection of statues, sold it, and bought a truck. And now I'm slowly building up my statue collection again. But I still love reading comics. I actually just got back into getting a pull list and getting single issues again. I stopped doing singles when I started getting collected editions. You know, the thing with collected editions is you're always behind. You're always a little bit out of the loop on what's current. So I think we got a good balance now. I enjoy those new comic book day Wednesdays. Man, I look forward to it every week. It breaks up the week. The same feeling that I had back in West Palm when I was getting right back into it. And, of course, ordering the new books off in-stock trades on Tuesdays. I got to thank the channel. This channel is a big reason that it keeps me reading it, because, you know, I want to drop reviews and I constantly want to have new content out. So it's more of an incentive to read, and it gives me more of a reason, and I enjoy it. So, damn, I think that's kind of everything I wanted to touch on like what got me into comics, why I'm still in it, and that little trip down memory lane. Let me know what got you into comics in the comments below. Drop me that like on the way out. If you're not already, subscribe to the channel, because we drop daily content with a variety of comic book related material. And if you're already subscribed, hit that join and become a member of Mint Collectibles. We have 3 tiers that offer special perks. And stay minty fresh. Peace.